This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. With me as always, Ken Roybal. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm always with you. Always.
Always with me, and I nailed your last name right there. Roybal.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Excellent.
Thank you.
It's been I don't know, 3 years, so.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad I was able to stand up for myself because I think because we just passed International Ken Day, and which is okay because everybody has some kind of international day, so why can't I? And I thought I'd stand up for myself about that. Yeah,
appreciate it. Ken, interview today is an LAPD guy who flew the coop and went up to Washington State and became an officer.
That's right. Great guy. Good guy, and he's not gonna use his name. He's gonna go by Mac, and we're not gonna mention the agency he works for now. Is that correct? Yes. How come people can't be anonymous and say, just call me Ken Roybal? Why can't they do that? And then that would be kind of cool. Every anonymous guest should be Ken Roybal.
Yeah, I agree. That would work fine. You remind me of a time when I was in high school and we were drinking and we all had to pee, and we're all peeing on a fence out in a neighborhood somewhere. And one of my buddies goes, I'm going to call my penis Stephen Gould from now on. This is my Stephen Gould. And then he did it the rest of the night. It was very aggravating and hilarious. But okay, that was a weird memory that popped up.
So every time he introduced somebody, you to somebody, they would look at their crotch.
Exactly.
I guess.
He's in here. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna edit that out. That was very strange. Let's see here. Let's dial Mac into the conversation.
Mac.
Here we go. Hello, Mac.
Hello. Yes.
Hey, welcome to the podcast, man. Thank you for coming on. You're on with Steve and Ken.
And Ken.
Hello, gentlemen.
Sir.
Hey, man.
It sounds good. Are you using a headset or are you just using the speaker?
I'm just using an earphone that's plugged into my phone.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Mac, you started your career at LAPD, and then you smartened up and transferred up to Washington State. Is that what happened?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Just kidding, Ken.
I really didn't want to leave LA. It's just for the family.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And how long did you do in LA?
Almost 2 years.
And
not a bad choice. Washington is happening, man.
It is. It's a good place.
It was happening until you got the coronavirus, and now you can't go outside.
Yeah, we're locked down out here. Send food.
All right, Mike. So you were how long you been in a Washington officer?
For almost 16 years now.
Okay, great. So can you tell us? This would probably be from LA, but could you tell us about the first time you responded to a hot call, a call that really got your adrenaline going?
Yeah, it was down in LA, and it was a call that went out as an ambulance shooting, and myself and my partner actually heard the shots, which was only a few blocks away. So when we turned the corner, we saw the young man still somewhat alive, and a person kind of huddled over him, and not knowing what the actual situation was with the person huddled over him, we tactically stopped the shop or the unit in front of the right by the individual, and drew my weapon. And after I cleared who the individual was, and she said she was a nurse, she continued rendering first aid, and unfortunately the person passed away. And so from there, it was a 0 to 60 type of call. Basically, you're on patrol, it's a weekend and beautiful day, and all of a sudden you hear the shots, and then it's only a couple blocks away. And a perimeter was set up, air unit was set up, and long story short, I think the haunting portion of this whole call for me was when the family came home and began yelling out to the victim to get up. And of course, the victim wasn't going to get up. And it just so happens that there was, I think, 2 or 3 other victims that day throughout throughout LA. And it took the coroners quite a while to come out to us. So we had to hold down the perimeter and respect the scene where the body was at, and at the same time having to listen to the family trying to have the family member get up, but he wasn't getting up. So that will always haunt me.
How old was the victim?
The victim was 17. He was a good kid, and he managed to stay out of gangs. He just happened to be caught in between 2 rival gang territories. And also, the unfortunate thing is that he was caught in what we call a long block. And a long block is basically, if you get caught in a long block in some type of a shooting, you have no way for an egress to get out of the situation. Now, if you were caught in a short block, you can run down an alley and at least try to run away. I didn't know that much about the young man, but from what I understood from detectives, that he was a good kid, went to school, got good grades. And
what year did this happen?
This happened in 2003.
2003. I remember back in the 80s and 90s, parents would have their kids sleep in the bathtubs, because the old cast iron bathtubs. Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't be, so bullets wouldn't go flying and into the bedrooms and
yes, sir.
Kill or injure the family members.
Yes,
wow,
sir.
That's intense.
So we were just patrolling, and it was a beautiful day, and all of a sudden it just 7 shots rang out in succession, and then there was a brief pause, and then 2 more shots. So what actually happened when detectives showed up, the 7 shots were in the back, and the 2 shots were in the head.
Mm.
So,
wow, and this kid wasn't gang affiliated. He was just that's the saddest part about it. He wasn't even involved.
It is, and it's those things that you as an officer, right then and there, you throw up you start compartmentalizing things, and you say, hey, this is just part of the job. But here we are, years later, and I still think about that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. And it just reminded me of I went to a dead body call once, and there was the guy's wife had Alzheimer's, and it was a while before anybody else responded, and she kept walking in the room and rediscovering her husband was dead. And that was like a similar, not similar, but it just I felt very like you're trapped at a scene, you can't leave, and it's not getting better. You're just like, this is horrific. Well, thank goodness a nurse was there. That's something.
Yes.
Cops like to see at a scene with injury.
So, Mike, I don't know if you remember or not that at these scenes, there's friends and family that are just gathered around the yellow tape and stuff, and they're like, when the family finds out, they send people over, and they're on the ground wailing, yes. And they want to go see the person. They want to touch the body, and it's just dramatic.
That was the hardest part. Was waiting for our turn for the coroners to come out. So they were actually, I think they were two scenes away from us. So it took quite a while. So during that time is when you hear the family, especially the mother, just yelling, and understandably so, right? It's
sure. That's an intense call. Was this, how far into your career was this?
This was on probation. This was when I was on probation. So it was, I would say I was in about 6 months into probation.
Well, did you have, after that call, were you like, did you have any question in your mind that this is what you wanted to do?
No questions whatsoever, because the training that you get prepares you for it. I mean, not to brag about LA, but they really prepare you. I mean, you go to the corners. Part of your academy training is you go to the corners, you ask questions, and you see autopsies if there is any going on at the time. If just so happen to be your class happens to be rotating at the right time. So, but then again, it's not only that. It's learning how to treat the public as if you want to be treated. It's easy for officers to just say, you try to desensitize yourself, but you can't, because you are a human being yourselves, and they're human beings, and they're going through a traumatic period. And so those are the things that eat away at you. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's I know the academies do their best to, like you said, to try to get you a little bit desensitized for it, but I'm sure when it's not a controlled environment and it's on the street and you have that element of family members and public just wailing out and yelling, and that's definitely something I don't think people think about when they sign up for it,
Yeah, it does question your mettle. You do. I mean, I've seen some probationers that it questions them. Is this what I really signed up? Like you asked earlier, is this what I really signed up for? And some decide not to go on because it's not what they signed up for. It's not what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you describe the strangest or most bizarre thing you dealt with?
Let's see. Herding cattle and goats.
Nice. I like that. I got some. We actually just had a baby goat born on my property this morning.
Well, congratulations.
Do you have any questions?
Having everything born around you.
I know.
I feel that we're talking about Washington now.
Is it?
No, come on now.
I don't think we heard any cattle in LA.
So I'm especially not too fond of goats. Cattle's I'm okay, because cattle's, you get one and everybody else all the other cattle follows. But the goats, we just pretty much herded them to a corner of the woods and then waited for the owner to show up. So basically they just got out. That was it. And causing discontent and some type of hate for traffic. So and animal control is usually not going to be available until the call is done. So, yeah. No, it's just kidding. Animal control people are good people as well. And but anyways, that's it sounds boring, but that was one of the strangest ones that I've had.
So this definitely goes in the category of more rural policing. Were you thinking to yourself, wow, this is so different than LA?
But you know what? There are calls like that in LA.
What?
There are. And to think about it, especially near Elysian Park, there's calls of coyotes out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And because there are still some pockets of wooded areas near Griffith's Observatory. I'd say that the mounted unit has Metro's mounted unit has a place where it's actually a farm where they store their horses.
A farm? I thought that was at the Amundsen Center. Is that a farm?
Amundsen? That the recruit center? No.
No. They have one up in Northeast Division where it's like it was called like the training facility. Was it? What do you call those? Not
equestrian.
Stables. Yeah, equestrian center.
Okay, that could be it. Yeah,
it could be a farm too, though. It could be anything you want, Mike.
It could be anything.
Yeah, that's what people like about LA. When the conversation LA versus New York comes up, it's always, well, LA at least has nature woven throughout it. So there's a mountain lion over the Griffith Observatory. I think P22 wanders around.
Oh, yeah.
So You know, I don't know. I don't know about goats and cattle though.
You know, when the cattle is taller than you, you really begin to worry.
Hey, Mike, I have a question for you about your LA time.
Yes, sir.
This is so funny because Steve, you probably have gotten this question too. Have you ever had to pull your gun out on anybody?
Unfortunately, yes.
Bunch of times.
That's almost. Unfortunately, you can say during a deployment period, there would be times where it was nightly.
Oh yeah. Where did you do your probation?
77th.
Ah, 77th.
South LA.
Oh, you're pulling your gun out down there.
Yeah, it's basically I had some outstanding training officers where, you learn how to talk to each other. You're constantly doing tactical situations even if you're going to stop somebody. And, we say to each other, in or out. It means, are we going to keep them in the car or are we going to get them out of the car? Depending on our location in the 77th, whether it's good to keep them in the car, it's good to keep them out of the car, or do we wait to pull them over and get air unit overhead, depending on what we have on the vehicle. So it was nice because you're constantly talking to each other without looking at each other and saying, okay, this is what I'm thinking, clear right, clear left, whatever. You're always looking out for your partner. And so I really liked my time down there.
I worked in Newton, which borders 77th, so we would get a lot of cross traffic and stuff going on. But 77th is one of the most active divisions in the city. I mean, if you want to learn police work, and it's really cool when you're out of the academy and they send you to a place in South Bureau, 77th, Southwest, all those areas, and you get to learn some real heavy duty police work in a very, very short time, like a week. And it's a jumping division, and there's constant shootings, murders, shootings, all kinds of horrific stuff in those divisions. And
there's a pecking order in there too, and rightfully so. I have a military background, and my training officer said, as a probationer, or your actual grade is P1. They pretty much told me P1s hang out with P1s, P2s hang out with P2s, and P3s, and so on. And rightfully so. If you're at a scene and you're not the primary officer, but you see a fellow P1 needing help, and you go over there instead of just standing around and talking. So you're expected to do things, and it's not something degrading. It's more of they want you to learn. They want you to start thinking tactics all the time. And Ken's right. I mean, it's like a baptism of, they throw you in the fire and they want to see how you're going to perform, if you're going to shut down or whatever. But at the same time, keeping in mind that I know it's just the saying, a motto, but to serve and to protect. Okay, to serve means you have to communicate with people. You can't just go to a call, just say, okay, we're done. So that's what I liked about that area.
And when you went to Washington, was it one-man cars?
What's that?
Is it single-man cars now, like in where you are?
Yes.
So
but down there, there were two-man cars. Yeah, right. Down there were A cars or two-man cars.
Got it. Yeah, so you definitely don't have that. I mean, I worked in a rural area, and it's very easy to become complacent and have poor tactics because the hot calls you run into are spread out further. You're not you're not polishing those skills all the time. Can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call?
I think the most, when I thought about that question, Ken, you said you were from Newton. It was, I believe it started out as a Newton call. And what it was a rival gang that was looking for another gang member. So they drove by his house and found a family member watering the lawn or something, and instead shot that individual, killed him with some type of rifle. And lo and behold, this military guy just happened to be on vacation. He was driving and he saw the whole thing and followed the SUV as it went from one division and entered our division. And the call goes out, air units overhead, tracking the WIT as he's tracking, as the WIT is tracking the suspect vehicle. Suspect vehicle enters our location and eventually stops near a convenience store. Believe it was like 3 deep or something like that. And we just happened to come around the corner and we went ahead and detained 2 that was about to enter the convenience store, and asked, got some information where the 3rd individual went. And individual went south to an abandoned house not too far away. And again, that's where our training comes in, where we don't have time to wait for SWAT. It could become a barricaded subject because the rifle was still outstanding and the 3rd subject was still outstanding. So we, after perimeter was set up on, if I remember right, the perimeter was set up on the abandoned house. And I was tasked to get a team together to enter the home and clear it. So you don't have time to say, let's think about this. Your training takes over. And you just say, okay, I'll be, it's like a diamond formation. I'm the number 1, number 2 breaks left, number 3 breaks right, number 4 is the cover officer, just in case somebody goes down, and I think number 5 is going to be the one that pulls the individual out if somebody goes down. So that's all we had time to go. You, me, we're just going to go in there and clear it. So luckily the individual just ran through that house, but he wasn't in there after we cleared it. So they eventually found him hiding in a trunk of a vehicle, abandoned vehicle in an alley not too far away. But it was a call that just, again, I call it 0 to 60. You just go, you're on patrol, beautiful day, and all of a sudden this goes down. So you just don't have time. And it happens up here too. It happens everywhere. It's not just exclusive down to SoCal or New York. All officers deal with that type of call all the time, where it's just you're just going about your business, doing a report, and all of a sudden you get toned out for something.
Yeah, I mean, how hard is your heart beating right before you go through that door? You're the point man.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I think you don't think about it until everything is done, and then there's a debrief. But in the heat of the moment, your training takes over. It really does, because there are times when you do things like that as an officer, and you don't even know you're doing it until you're done with it, and you say, "Wow, I just did that." So.
Right. It's all about repetition and training.
Yes.
Now, were you on probation at that time?
Still, yes.
Yeah. So the whole, your question about being a point man, Steve, is crucial, because he was on probation, which means he was absolutely expendable. And his life did not matter. And I just want to bring that to the attention of anybody who wants to be a police officer. Just remember, if you're the point man, you have no value whatsoever.
I'm sure the rear guard had 25 years on, probably.
Yeah.
I'll take up the back.
Actually, I think we were all P1s that entered that home.
Nice.
It's okay. What can you do? Can you tell your P3, no, I don't want to do this? Or the sergeant on the scene.
I got a question for you regarding, because you were on the job back in the day, and you're still on the job. Tell me about the difference, because I'm thinking about all the news stories we have and all the videotapes and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, what are your thoughts on the way it used to be and the way that it appears that police officers are by and large so disrespected, and you just want to, reach out and to some of these people and show them that you really need to show some respect here. What have you seen some major shifts in how people respect or disrespect the police coming from LA to Washington and just the years that have passed?
I think for the most part, the respect is still there. When you're one-on-one with individuals, there are those far and few in between. Again, everybody says it's social media and everything like that, because social media, you can hide behind, usernames and whatever, and the media itself. But, the media could be at the same time helpful, for an investigation. So I think now we have to find that happy medium, because there are times where, like I just said, media can be helped, but there are times it's a double-edged sword, right? It can be detriment to presenting one side of the story of an actual incident that just went down before the incident was actually investigated. So, but then as well, I think when you and I were down in LA, where we didn't have, social media, we don't have time to take a picture and upload it to, our followers or anything like that. So officers nowadays, they're coming from a different, I would say, generation. They are savvy with the social media and the phone and everything, but they also have to be cognizant of the fact that it can be used against them, not infringing on rights to free speech, but it can be used against them because it could be an active investigation. So anytime we have an active investigation, obviously we don't there's nothing that's divulged because it's still active. Mm-hmm. So I it's easy for us to say that. I think there's always been those situations where people are upset with law enforcement, for what reason whatsoever, for any reason, but now it's more publicized, okay, which is rightfully so, but then you have to find that happy medium for the media. Is it also only the negative, but can we do the positive as well? And I'm seeing that now myself. They are doing positive presentation of law enforcement. But it all comes down to whatever distractors we have out there as officers. We have to stay focused. We have to stay focused as far as doing our job and treating people the right way. If we do that and not let the distractors distract us, we'll be okay.
Do you guys do body cams up there?
Not yet.
I find that Ken, the people we've talked to, some of the younger guys, and probably like you were saying, that they're not adverse at all to technology. they're liking the body cameras. They're because I think everybody thought like, aha, now we're gonna catch the police, being racist and abusive, and then like quite the opposite happened. They're documenting all their stuff, and they're finding the opposite, that these video recorders seem to be protecting police officers, although they're a huge pain in the ass to deal with.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of departments you'd think that they would be all kind of nitpicky about professionalism and stuff, but when you see these shootings that are posted from the different agencies, they have the officers using foul language and all that, and I would some squint in the building would go, oh, you know what, there was a good shooting in policy, and the officers did the right thing, but we're going to have to mention that you did use unprofessional language during this deadly situation. And they, I don't think they do that. I think they realize that the body cameras are going to capture real life crap. And when you're in the middle of getting shot at, you're not going to go, please, sir, please drop the weapon. It's not going to work like that. So I think the departments are by and large very cool with the fact that this is gritty real life. Let's not nitpick.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah, I'm thankful for that myself, because we used to, where I worked, we used to border a national park, and the rangers had body cams and we didn't. And there'd be so many times we're backing them up or whatever, and we're just sitting around shooting the breeze, saying, who knows what to each other, joking around, being crass, and then they would just randomly point at their chest like, hey, don't forget this is on. And we're like, oh, right.
Yeah,
but it was just,
absolutely.
We're just,
I don't know if
we're just swearing and whatever else, but.
Yeah, I don't remember if I ever told you a story. When I was on probation, I was in foot pursuit, and this guy it was like a commercial area, and a guy was climbing over these business fences. They're like 10 feet tall fences. And I'm going, gosh, man. And I was very young. I was 22, and I was chasing this guy. I was in foot pursuit chasing him. He hops over this wrought iron fence. I swear it was like 10 feet tall. And he gets over the other side, and I'm going, oh, dude, I cannot get over this fence. So what I did instead, I had my gun out, and I was pointing through the fence, and I shouted at the guy, you better stop or I'll effing kill you. And the guy stopped in his tracks. And then they went around and they cuffed the guy up, took him, and I'm putting him in the car. And as I'm putting him in the car, he looks at me and he's like almost crying. He goes, thank you for not killing me. And I'm like, yeah, that's right.
That's great.
It's that real life, man. I mean, this is the way it is. So that's all good.
Absolutely. That's funny. Thank you for not killing me. Oh, man.
I'm crying. Yeah. I did him a favor.
So, Mac, do you have a positive encounter you'd want to share with us?
Yeah. Again, like I said earlier, when you have time, take the time out to talk to, whether it's a victim, even a suspect, you can get some good information from, and victims and witnesses, you calm things down. This is when you have time and the division's not falling apart, or your patrol areas isn't falling apart. But I had one where this old lady, she kept calling 911 because she said there was a burglary in progress. And this happened for like 3 nights in a row. And so on the third or fourth night, me and my partner were dispatched to the same home, and we did our perimeter check and met with the lady, and we just talked to her and assured her everything was okay. And as I was talking to her, I found out about her family when her and her husband moved to the neighborhood, which was in the early 60s. Her husband was since deceased, and found out about the neighborhood, the architecture of the home, everything. And as I'm talking to her, we heard scratches and banging on top of the roof. And so my partner and I went outside, and lo and behold, it's a huge raccoon with her babies trying to get into the crawl space of the attic. So the lady was like, she was upset and relieved that she wasn't hearing things, and she wasn't, and she gave a hug for taking the time out for us taking the time out and talking to her and finding out who the suspect was, right? The raccoon. So I guess the moral to the story is that, we took care of the situation by taking the time out and talking to her, but at the same time, there are people out there that are living alone. And sometimes an officer, if he or she has the time out to talk to them, talk to these individuals, because that's all. Sometimes that's all they really want. That's all they really need, is because that's sometimes we are all they have. And I always remember that, and I always remember her. I don't necessarily remember her name. I don't know if she's still alive, but her taking the time out and having tears in her eyes as she hugged me for taking the time out and talking to her. Those are the calls that sticks in your mind.
Did you kill the raccoons?
No, we just kind of like they look. Raccoons. They're funny. They'll look at you like they'll stare you down like what?
They're tough.
Yeah, and so I believe what happened was animal control eventually made it out to her, and family members went up there and boarded, or not family members. I believe it was neighbors boarded up the hole up there or whatever. But
and then they killed the raccoons.
In this situation, raccoons are dying.
Somebody
got to die, right?
Yeah, somebody got to die, man. It's a story.
That's funny. People don't realize the different hats cops wear. That's the first line of defense for everything. You're there before any town or city service can get there a lot of times. And
yes,
you do what you got to do. I remember going to a really elderly lady's house, and she goes, "I hear water rushing." And I could hear it like loud. I'm like, "Ooh, there's a problem." She goes, "I don't have a basement. I have like a quarter basement. It's like only 3 feet tall." And she goes, "I think a pipe burst." And sure enough, I look under there in the trapway, and there is water going everywhere. And the shut off is way across the crawl space. And I'm like, "Oh, hell no! I'm not getting in there." So I try to call a plumber with her. Plumber can't come till the next day.
Wow.
So I'm like, I guess I'm doing this. And I crawled through her crawl space, getting blasted with high pressure water.
Oh, wow.
In the winter. Jeez. And I shut it off. I'm like, I couldn't just leave her. She's like, "It's going to ruin my house." I'm like, "Oh, but those are the things you do."
She still remembers that. I bet you she remembers that.
Oh yeah. She was very, very appreciative, but, yeah. And sometimes it requires a change of uniform, literally.
Yeah. But again, if the division's not falling apart and you have time to talk to people, I think that's the best thing. I think with all this, again, with social media and doing more with less, and we go from call to call, we forget that. Sometimes we have to disengage and put ourselves back in how community policing really is, right? Is to go out there and talk to individuals.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take much either. Like I'm walking down the street in Los Angeles with my family when we were living in Los Feliz, and an officer saw my son, and he was clearly checking the car out. They were sitting there on the curb, and he just went, "Hey, buddy." And it made my son's whole day. You know what I mean? And my wife was so impressed because it's so intimidating when you see a city police officer just kind of sitting there in his car. For him just to even turn his head and say, "Hey, bud," to a child, that that's all that took.
One other thing I learned from a training officer was that that really stuck with me was we'd go to lunch, and this particular training officer would always ask if, "Hey, are you going to eat that food that we haven't really touched?" And so he said, we would say no, and then he would gather all this food, and then we would go back to our reporting district, and we would find a homeless person, and we would actually he taught me this. We actually would go up to the homeless person and say, "Would you like this food?" We wouldn't just like give throw the food at them. It's just this. "Would you like this food?" Give them, treat them with some respect, and we gave the food. And I remember him telling me one time, he goes, "Okay, Boot, what'd you learn from this?" I go, "We're giving food away." And he goes, "No, you never know when that in this alley and that transient or homeless individual is going to witness or going to be the only one that can help an officer that's in a fight for his or her life. And good deeds like this, they'll remember that.
Oh, that's very cool.
So from then on, I started doing the same thing when I wheeled over to another division, and started doing the same thing. I would always ask, hey, you haven't touched that, are you going to eat it? And they go, man, you're always hungry. I go, it's really not for me. And so we would just go around and treat people with respect and give it to them.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Do you have some advice for new officers, candidates that are getting on the job?
Yes. Just don't leave anything out in your background.
Right.
Because if it's found, then it's going to be questioned why you left it out, which would throw a red flag about you as an individual. And also watch what you put on social media, because we do look at that. Those things are what we call those things we'll be able to find. Right. And again, it's just not being a candidate for police. It's just being a good person. You don't want to bully somebody on social media. You don't want to whatever. And it's the new officers now, the new candidates nowadays, they're outstanding. A lot of them are well educated, and it's a different generation. There's positive things about the new generations. They like to have good ideas, but sometimes they want to have. They think their ideas they need to be implemented right away. But then, as a good mentor, you should be able to tell them that great ideas, you did a lot of good work on it, but there is a process in getting these ideas approved, like city budgets, stuff like that. But at the same time, for new police officers, they're awesome. I mean, they're workaholics. But just, I guess, again, it's the social media thing. It's don't let it distract you. Just do your job. If you're doing your job the right way, you should be okay. That's about it. I think it's the same way for all the generations, right? It's just not the new police officers and candidates, but I'm running out of words here, Ken.
No, that's, when you said that, it reminded me of a situation when I did a background on someone, and like you're stressing social media, and it's so important because we get a lot of candidates that are just back from overseas, soldiers, and these guys have access to social media now while they're deployed. So yes. A few times I did a social media check, and I had to bring the guy in and go, hey, man, I understand you're at war and you're in a different mindset, and I totally get it. And I'm not saying you couldn't be a cop, but with what I just saw on here and people have seen this, no, man, you can't, it's either extremely overtly violent or racist, or it could be misconstrued by so many different ways. But they're in the middle of a wartime, and maybe they think they're going to die, or they think they're being funny. No, don't. Like, if you have any idea that you're going to, after deployment, come here and be a cop, please don't even get on social media when you're deployed. That's my 2 cents.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. Totally agree.
Ken,
me too. Yes.
Any follow-up questions for our guest?
I'm kind of wondering, Mike, I think Mike's been holding back a little bit. I'm kind of wondering, tell me about some pursuits, Mike. Out of the 2,000 that you were involved in, there's got to be some really good pursuit stories.
Code 37s. I really only had one good bona fide Code 37. You know what a Code 37 is? A stolen vehicle, and it was a funny one, really, to the point where it's not that I thought, I knew I called it out the way it's supposed to be called out. Basically, you say, your call sign, show us following a code 37 vehicle, la la la, and you give your location out and you press back up in an airship. Am I correct, Ken?
Yes.
Okay. So, long story short, it was a rolling stolen, and then all of a sudden it stopped. We got it in the driveway. Once the dust was settled, everybody was cuffed and everything. I remember my training officer saying, "Hey, Boot, you forgot something. You forgot to say you didn't say the right thing over the radio."
I got to tell you something, right?
And I, yes, and I spoke up and I go, "No, sir, I believe I did. I said everything." He goes, "Are you sure?" And I go, "Yes, sir, I am. I'm sure." And he goes, "Would you like me to get the tapes?" I go, "Perfect." And all this conversation, I was sitting on the mic.
Oh no!
And so we go back to the division, and the sergeant too goes, "Are you two okay?" Because they heard everything. It was just a joke. It was just like, that was the first time I stood up for myself, right? Hey, I know I did it the right way,
right.
And but it just so happens to be I was sitting on the mic at the time, because a lot of dynamics is happening when you do when you pull over a rolling stolen and you get everybody cuffed up and everything. And sometimes when you're getting out of the shop, you throw your bike down and it happens to land on your seat. And that's what happened. But it's
there's no worse feeling when someone tells you, "Hey, do you know you had an open mic?" What?
Yeah.
Then you're like cataloging, what the hell did I say?
But I think somebody pulled me aside. Good for you. You stood up for yourself, because they heard it too. But
man,
got a lot of I am fortunate enough to be to have good mentors, good people to work for, not only down there, but up here as well. Work with and work for. I count my blessings. So it's just that I'm getting old.
What's police work? I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
I was going to say I have a question for you guys, either one of you. For people who are more rural and don't work with helicopters often, like I didn't. Few questions. Can you talk directly to the chopper from the frequency in your car?
We do have a channel.
Okay.
We do have a channel that we can switch over to. Everybody, usually dispatch will pick a channel for us that everybody has access to, and then we'll do it that way.
Oh, it's like a party line. You guys are all in there.
Yes.
And also,
it used to be Tech 1 and Tech 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's so many frequencies flying around LA County now. There's so many agencies. Helicopters are so expensive to fly. I mean, LA must just have one in the air, a couple in the air all the time, right? So you can just call out and he's already up there?
Usually, yes.
Okay, so it's not, I mean, like back where I was real rural, and we would use the state police air wing. So, you'd have to make a phone call, and then secondly, they'd have to make sure conditions were clear because they weren't always in the air. And then when they came out, it could be, 20, 30 minutes till they showed up. So a lot of thought went into, do we really need this helicopter? Because the expense was huge just to get it to you. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yep.
So usually it's for like lost kids or lost vessels or, whatever, something like real serious.
Mike, what are you eating now?
I just moved it to the side.
God, you little piggly wiggly. Can you just spoon hit the bowl and all that? We're a professional podcast here.
Through the magic of editing, you won't hear anything.
Definitely. Thank you.
No, I'll leave a little bit in because it's funny for just context for people. Oh, man. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. That was fun.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, sirs. Awesome. Well, I will outro us. Mike, will you hang on the line when I run that outro reel?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you'd like to support the show, go over to thingspolicec.com. When you get on the website, there's a few different ways you can show some support. You can donate directly. You can do a one-time donation or a monthly donation. Even $1 helps us keep the lights on over here, pays our expenses for the month, is greatly appreciated. You can also just use our Amazon affiliate link. If you just want to buy something on Amazon like you normally do, just do it through our link, and we'll get a little kickback for that. So you can go to the website and do that, or in the show notes, I'll put a link. You can just click right through that link. And the third way is you can buy some merch. So we have coffee mugs, we have T-shirts, men's and women's, and we also have hoodie sweatshirts now. So go over to thingspolicec.com and check it out. You can also just listen to the podcast there, or you can apply to be a guest. Just scroll down and click on Be a Guest, and what you want to do is just give us a brief synopsis of your service, how many years you were on the job, and just a very brief idea of the stories you'd like to share, and I will get right back to you. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.